The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus appointed 72 other disciples, whom he sent ahead of him in pairs to every town and place he intended to visit. He said to them, "The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. So ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest. Go on your way. Behold, I am now sending you like lambs among wolves. Carry no money bag, no sack, no sandals, and greet no one along the way. And to whatever house you enter, first say, 'Peace to this household.' If a peaceful person lives there, your peace will rest on him. But if not, it will return to you. Stay in the same house and eat and drink what is offered to you, for the laborer deserves his payment. Do not move about from one house to another. Whatever town you enter and they welcome you, eat what is set before you. Cure the sick in it and say to them, 'The kingdom of God is at hand for you.' Whatever town you enter and they do not receive you, go out into the streets and say, 'The dust of your town that clings to our feet, even that we shake off against you.' Yet know this, the kingdom of God is at hand. I tell you, it will be more tolerable for Sodom on that day than for that town." The Gospel of the Lord. So in our culture today, there are two common misconceptions about Jesus and the church. One of the things you hear most often today is you hear people say they are spiritual but not religious. And they claim that Jesus himself was spiritual but not religious. He was anti-religious establishment. Usually people who say that are just generally pretty ignorant. They're not. You don't tend to hear that from people who've gone to seminary and things like that. But every once in a while, you'll hear that from even an evangelical minister. Another thing you'll hear, which is not quite as extreme, is from many non-Catholics. And they have this idea that Jesus founded the church, but the church didn't really have a hierarchical structure to it. There were different roles in the church, but not so much a hierarchy. Now, in today's gospel, we have a hint about both of those conceptions being incorrect. Jesus appointed 72 other disciples. So we know Jesus had his 12 main disciples, but here he has 72, or some manuscripts say 70. Now I want to do a little bit of a Bible study this morning on the significance of this. You guys have heard me talk other times about the hierarchical structure of the New Testament, about Mary being the queen mother, about St. Peter being the prime minister figure, the 12 apostles being the 12 representatives, right? All of that mirrors things from the Old Testament. The Old Testament kingdom of Israel, which had a very clear hierarchical structure. Now, what's the significance of the 72? There's also hierarchical significance to that. First of all, we're not sure if the original manuscript said 72 or 70, but I would argue that it said 70. And I say that because in the Old Testament, the number 70 was very significant. The number 70 had a hierarchical significance in the kingdom of Israel. In the book of Exodus, when Moses ascended Mount Sinai just before receiving the 10 Commandments, he brought 70 elders with him. 70 priests, you would say, he brought with him. Also later on in the book of Numbers, Moses, many people were coming to him with their complaints, and they asked him to judge cases for him. And there were so many that he had to appoint 70 judges to assist him in judgment. Right? So 70 in the Old Testament was a number that represented priestly authority and also moral authority. Jesus also uses the number 70. And actually, I don't know if you know this, but actually for most of church history, we also had the number 70 in our hierarchical structure. Up until the 1960s, there were 70 cardinals in the church. 70 cardinals representing this. Now, what does this signify? This signifies that clearly Jesus and his ministry, he was not merely anti-religious establishment. Rather, he was against the current religious establishment. And he was founding a new religious hierarchy and a new religious structure, which we now call the church. Now, one last point on this. You all have heard of the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Sanhedrin at the time of Jesus. Right? They tended to be people who criticized Jesus, especially the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was very upset at what Jesus was doing. Why? Did you know that the Sanhedrin had 70 members? So you remember the Sanhedrin, and you see this man walking around claiming to be the Messiah, claiming to be a new Moses and a new David, and forming this new religious hierarchy, and sending out 70 disciples as a part of this hierarchy. You might be looking and saying, what's he doing? We already have a hierarchy. We already have an establishment. And Jesus, in a way, is saying, not for long. Very interesting, right? Gosh, it's so great. I love this stuff.